possible for you to speak about Trilogy and give us an update as to the status of the Trilogy project?
Trilogy right now is the covenant that will be tied to the land, is the basic agreement between the parties, has been approved by both lawyers, has been given second reading by the village council the other night in the various areas. The only outstanding matter right now before public hearing is there's a letter they were requested to sign by our lawyers saying there were no other agreements to be acknowledged between the parties other than that covenant. The complexity is that Cumberland had agreed to 3 other points: that we would make every attempt to acquire grants for some of the infrastructure work, that we would seriously consider as one of our portions of our contribution to the infrastructure, which is that part which we would be responsible for anyway, regardless of development. But because we didn't have money, we said we could look at forgiving DCCs commercially for one area for a period of time, just till we paid that share. And we committed to putting $1 million of the so-called amenity money back in as our share, which would have left us still with some to do things we wanted to do. We were legally advised not to put that in any covenant or agreement at the time because we couldn't guarantee the outcome. So don't trap yourself.
Right.
Well, after this letter came out, Trilogy, of course, would not agree to the letter because they said, we do have some other agreements. And I spoke to our lawyers and said, council did resolve to commit to those efforts. And we did clearly state they were efforts, not guarantees. And we at least need to acknowledge that. And they said, well, then it should be in the covenant. And I said, but you told us not to put it there. So the way I left it at our council meeting was we instructed staff to tell our lawyers, look, you get together and put some language wherever you have to put it so that Cumberland lives up to its commitments, but nothing beyond that. Because I understand the basics of their letter is to say that if any staffer or some consultant or something with the village made some promises that we're not aware of, we can't be held accountable for those. And that's fair enough. So, but it seems to me it shouldn't take more than a couple hours for 2 lawyers to sit down and sort that out. And, yes, they agreed they would try to do these things. That's it. If you have anything else, what we've said to Trilogy, if there's something else you think we've made a point, then tell us. Let us answer that. And I don't think that issue should be anything that should hold us up from getting an agreement enough to go ahead to a public hearing. I think we are being prudent and cautious to make sure we go to a public hearing again with an open mind and make sure the public's had time to digest this. We don't want to end up with the criticism like happened a little to our south. And legitimate, I'm not challenging that. But we want to make sure that our process is such that when we're done, it really is done. We did do appropriate public consultation and we did hear the public. And then the decision, whatever council makes, is fair enough. And hopefully we can get to that point fairly soon. I know some persons have indicated, why are you rushing this? And in fairness, I'd have to say we've been rushing this for 3.5 years. We're not rushing it. We're trying to be responsive to the commercial industry's demands to the point of understanding that today financing is very difficult to get. So if they have deadlines on them as to when the financing promises run out, we'd like to try and meet those. I think Council and Cumberland in general have indicated we want the development, notwithstanding there's disagreements about parts of it. We want the development, so we have to, in fact, do our part to try and make it happen. it can happen in different ways, it can be changed, it can be whatever the public and council can come to an agreement on. But it needs to happen, and we need to be timely. And we can't shut down for the summer to take another 3 or 4 month break before we carry on with business. I've heard that comment that we shouldn't run things in the summer, but then we shouldn't run them in the winter because it's ski season. I mean, people take holidays and vacations all the time, so we need to get our work done. And I think as long as we make sure there's ample notice and ample time, we carry on.
I've run a couple of polls on the Cumberlander regarding the Trilogy project, which has been presented as an all or nothing proposal. Is that correct? I mean, I can remember John Evans standing up in one of the meetings and saying and agreeing that yes, this is all or nothing.
Well, when he says all or nothing, I'm taking it he's talking about we need all the different sections approved. What he can't do, and that may have sounded pretty crass to say all or nothing, but I understand the point, is you can't say, well, let's just get approval on this small piece and then we can go ahead, because he has a commitment with the landowner that if he deals with any, he buys it all. Well, you're not going to buy all this land and only get zoning on this small piece and hope that in the future someone will give you more. It doesn't mean it all has to go ahead right now, but it does need to be zoned. That's all. And clearly, we've looked at the process and talked to the legal people, the planning people, etc. There's still room for public input every time a section gets developed. When we look at the building permit stage, even where things aren't necessarily legally required, it doesn't mean we can't have public information sessions and say, what do you think? Here's the proposal. And I think, in fairness to this council, and I know we've heard comments to the contrary, but they've been very open about listening to the public compared to many other places, at least. Maybe not as open as some would like, but I guess somewhere there has to be a limit to where you've heard it. I don't know what that limit is. I really don't. There's no book to tell us you need to, all the book says you have to have a public hearing. But we've, in most cases, had at least 1 or 2 public information sessions before that happens to make sure we're on the same page. The requirements are not anywhere near the amount of public consultation that we've had. Even at this stage where we're stepping back and going forward again, we're only required to do a public hearing, not a public meeting.